So welcome everyone. Hi, I'm Joseph Grove, your host, Communications Director for the Center for a Humane Economy. And we're talking with Wayne Pacelle, who is the president and founder of Animal Wellness Action. And our topic today, since we're in the middle of election season, is elections and endorsements and how animal advocacy plays into that. Animal Wellness Action is a 501c4. For all of you political wonks, you know that means we are a nonprofit, but we are cleared to be engaged in political activity. And Wayne certainly has a long history of making things happen on a political level. And that's why I asked him to please join us today. Our website is animalwellnessaction.org. You can go there to sign up for all of the information we publish, stay abreast of our views on some of the hot, contentious issues of the day. And certainly also through that URL, you can contribute to our activity to make a difference in the political world for animals. So Wayne, thank you for being my guest today. I appreciate that.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So Wayne, I actually, for the first time, having worked with you for a number of years, had the pleasure of meeting you face to face when you were in Louisville, Kentucky last week to attend a press conference with a Senate candidate who had done some work with us on FDA modernization. But I know that you're involved in a lot of races. I'm hoping you can explain to our viewers today the role of Animal Wellness Action in political endorsements, where we stand on campaigns. How do we do that, and why do we do that?
Joseph, thank you. Yes, it was good to see you in Louisville last week. Well, Joseph, Animal Wellness Action, as you noted in your introduction, promotes legal standards against cruelty and then works to enforce our laws. And the principle driving this work is that we as a nation of 330 million people need rules when it comes to our treatment of animals, given the asymmetrical relationship we have with animals, that there are oftentimes cases where a small number of people victimize large numbers of animals. That could be dogfighting or cockfighting or puppy mills or trophy hunting of elephants or other threatened or endangered species. It takes so many forms. And obviously we want to convince every person to be a good steward, custodian, caretaker of animals, but some people just aren't possessed with the feeling that these other animals who share the planet with us matter. They may deny that they are conscious or even sentient, and that's why we need standards and rules. So our main work at Animal Wellness Action is to pass laws which shield animals from cruelty and also sets kind of a societal norm about what the appropriate conduct is when it comes to the treatment of animals. And if you want to drive policy, you have to have people in office who are elected to office who care about animals. They have to be sensitive and alert to these issues. And the reality is, they're buffeted by 1,001 things going on. And if there is not a strong advocacy group that is promoting these ideas, these bill concepts, these funding strategies, they will almost always ignore these issues because they've got other people clamoring for their attention. That is why I have long believed, and I have participated for many years in political advocacy for animals. And if you look at the current composition of the United States Congress, to take one example, we've got a 50-50 Congress, almost exactly. Never more in all the years that I've worked, 30 years of political advocacy for animals, have we seen the numbers be so even when it comes to elected Republicans and elected Democrats. It is literally 50-50 in the Senate, and it is by percentages like 50.3 to 49.7 in the House. It is just as tight as a drum. And the reality is, if you want to get animal legislation passed in the Congress, and most people do not understand this, and why would they? I mean, it's not their thing to understand the mechanics of lawmaking. You typically have to get a 2/3 majority in the House in order to win. If you do the arithmetic, say you get every Democrat or if you get every Republican, but you don't get people on the opposite party, you're still falling way short of the passage threshold in the House. And that doesn't say anything of the route to get to the floor in the House, which is passing through committees and getting the issue onto the floor. But if you want to win, you have to have bipartisan supermajorities in the House. It's just the way the system works. And it's even more pronounced in the Senate. Now, in the Senate, there's a mechanism called cloture, where if a lawmaker is blocking consideration of a bill through a filibuster or putting a hold on a bill, the majority leader can call a cloture vote, cut off debate, but he or she can only do that if you get 60 of 100 senators to stop the debate on an issue. I'm sorry to say that our issues do not warrant the kind of floor time that would be necessary to have a cloture vote. So the way that animal issues get passed in the Senate is by passing unanimously, because one senator can place a hold on a bill. We have this circumstance right now with Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma. He has a hold on the Big Cat Public Safety Act. Now, he says he's not strongly opposed to the bill. He has questions. He's looking into it. That's fine. We're working with him. We're hoping that those questions get resolved and that that bill can pass, because all of the other senators have basically, at this moment at least, cleared the bill for consideration, but one senator, so 99-1, and the bill doesn't pass. And Joseph, I want that to sink in with you, and I want that to sink in with our listeners. So the game of passing legislation involves really talking to everybody and getting people involved in our issues, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. If you have an entirely partisan approach, if you're a devoted Republican and you think all Democrats are terrible, or vice versa, if you're a devoted Democrat, you think all Republicans are terrible, that is not a winning strategy in American politics if it comes to animal welfare policy. I can tell you that. I'm right in the front row. I'm working on these issues every day, and I see how it works. So that's why I was especially excited that we at Animal Wellness Action recruited Senator Rand Paul, whom I did a press conference with you in Louisville just last week, and also Senator Cory Booker. Rand Paul is a Republican from Kentucky. Cory Booker is a Democrat from New Jersey. They are leading the FDA Modernization Act. This is a bill to eliminate a federal mandate for animal testing for all new drug development. And what a signal it is to all of the Republicans that Rand Paul, a very strong conservative, one of the lawmakers who is most commonly blocking legislation because he doesn't want to see more federal rules and standards, in the lead on this bill. And Cory Booker, a very strong Democrat, respected in the Democrat Party, he's saying this is a good idea too. So that was the setup. And then we added other lawmakers. We spoke to Tim Kaine, and we spoke to Alex Padilla. We spoke to a bunch of other Democrats, and they signed on. Then we also spoke to Mike Lee of Utah, and Mike Braun, and Susan Collins, and they and many others signed on to our bill as well. And it passed the Senate unanimously. And this is no small matter. This is the biggest category of animal testing that exists, testing on animals for new drug development. It's been in place for 84 years. No one's ever done this before in 84 years. And we not only got a vote, but we cleared it. So now we need to clear the House. We don't have as high a threshold. We just need 2/3. I'm very confident that if we get this issue up for a vote, we're going to win, and we're going to have this bill passed into law. But that gives you, in one case example of a bill, and with a description of how these bills pass, a little bit more on what it takes to do politics on animal protection in the United States Congress in 2022. And part of that thinking drives our strategy when it comes to endorsements.
Right. So we endorse, certainly when it comes to specific issues. When it comes to actually endorsing candidates, how do you decide, Wayne, to say our organization is going to not only say this person is doing the right thing on a right issue, but this person is right to win his or her race?
Right. Well, that's a complicated formula, Joseph. It's not It's not mathematics. It's really more of an art, and it rankles people that who are partisans. And most of us have strong beliefs. We identify. If you look at just registration numbers in the United States, most people identify others as a Democrat or a Republican. There are a lot of independents as well, but the two dominant categories are Democrats and Republicans. And a lot of people think, oh my God, how could you support a Democrat? Or how could you support a Republican? This person's terrible. They have this view or that view on that subject that really, doesn't sit well with people. We subordinate our personal views about politics because we think there has to be an animal group that calls balls and strikes just on animal issues. That doesn't mean I personally don't care about a wide range of other issues, whether it's environment or taxes or transportation policy or defense policy. All those things are very important. But you as a citizen, you've got a lot of other sources for all that. And it's up to you to figure out what your blend of concerns is when you go into the voting booth or you think about supporting someone. But some organization should be out there to give you some guidance on how the lawmakers are performing on animal issues. And Joseph, it's a complicated situation. I mean, it's how they perform, how they vote on animal issues, but it's also very important on whether they're leading on an issue, if they're an effective lawmaker, if they're able to get something done. Also, political viability matters. Are they going to, are they a Republican in a Republican state and they're automatically going to win or likely, or a Democrat, or if it's a close race, like, how does it tip in terms of how one candidate feels about animals versus another? So we are very bipartisan, which is a very strange circumstance for most people to see an animal organization because we think of things through partisan lenses. So Rand Paul is someone that many people would be shocked to see that we are endorsing in this cycle. But Rand Paul is leading on the priority bill for animal welfare in the country, in my opinion. This is the biggest category of animal testing. It's a viable bill. He's almost certainly going to win his reelection. He's been someone that we have opened up a relationship with. He's communicating with us on a wide range of subjects. And frankly, I see him growing in terms of his awareness on animal issues. And that's the important part of this as well. Like, we're not all static as human beings. They're not static as lawmakers. These are opportunities for us to educate lawmakers about a wider range of issues, just like we educate our family members or our friends or our coworkers. Most of these people are buffeted by 1,000 issues. They're not familiar with the details, and how they respond and whether they take the torch and move forward is really important. So, we've got Democrats who are stalwart supporters, like Dick Blumenthal of Connecticut. He's carrying the Big Cat Public Safety Act. In the past, he was the co-lead of the Preventing Animal Cruelty at Torture Act, which is a national anti-cruelty bill. He was co-lead with Senator Booker on the national animal fighting bill to extend animal fighting prohibitions to the U.S. territories. So he wins our endorsement. That's a cinch. He's been involved in issue after issue. He has a great voting record. He's a leader. You don't always get something so clear where you get a leader voting 100% who treats these issues really seriously and understands animal issues. A lot of times it's much more nuanced.
It's interesting. When I used to work in child advocacy in the court system, the judge would have, of course, the mother's attorney and the father's attorney. The judge would hear from the organization I was with, CASA. The social workers would be there. And really what we're doing is we're treating each voter as a judge who has that decision in the ballot booth. And we're saying, all right, judge, voter, here's where we are in this issue. And we're just asking voters, among all the many issues that confront them, to say, we're representing this aspect. We're not here to talk about other issues. We're just saying that if animals are important to you, this is the person, this is the issue that you need to endorse with your vote on November 8th.
What's the incentive for Rand Paul to spend endless hours on the FDA Modernization Act if animal advocates disqualify him in terms of his own reelection campaign because they disagree with him on other issues. I mean, when we see that he's leading and helping to get something done, when he has the ability to work with a Democrat like Cory Booker, who is, probably the leading animal welfare advocate in the United States Senate, and he's getting something over the finish line, you want to reward him. And if he was against you on every other issue, well, you would have to balance that. But, we have another bill called the Big Cat Public Safety Act, and he let that clear as well. He decided that he was going to give that a nod and allow that to proceed. So, Rand Paul is a great example, I think, to test whether you're honest about looking at the issues in an animal-focused way. And that doesn't mean we're telling people who are supporters that they shouldn't, factor what they factor. Everyone's different. Everyone's going to make their judgments based on a wide range of concerns, perhaps. Some people are going to be, I'm really into the animals. That's my number one thing. And I'm going to drive my voting behavior based on animal issues. Others are not that way. We're simply telling you, based on animal issues, here's what we think is the best outcome for animal issues in the United States.
All right, terrific. Wayne, is there anything I've not asked about this issue that you want to address before I wrap us up?
Well, there are a lot of cases. We were very concerned in Pennsylvania about Dr. Oz and the animal testing that he did when he was an animal researcher at Columbia University. And the news outlet Jezebel really went through what happened in his laboratory over a 20 or so year period and documented more than 1,000 animals were used and killed in his lab, more than 300 beagles. And we reached out and asked for a statement that, things have changed. He has a different view of the subject, or that he would actively support alternatives, because the lab was cited for mistreatment of animals. Columbia University was cited for the lab that Dr. Oz oversaw. And the report said that they didn't use alternatives when they could have, that there was pain and suffering that went on longer than it should have as well. And there were real questions about how the treatment of animals was handled on a day-to-day basis, what the purposes of the use of animals was. Basically, our scientific team has said there was nothing good that came out of those tests from a public health perspective. No new drugs, no new medical devices, no new surgical procedures were pioneers as a consequence of those studies. And then when you add that to the fact that there was, one whistleblower said there was mistreatment, that was important information for us to factor. Alone, it was not decisive. That's why we reached out and said, please issue a statement. At the same time, we reached out to the Fetterman campaign, and the Fetterman campaign was publicly critical of Oz's past animal testing career. And he said he would support the FDA Modernization Act, would support other policies to reduce animal testing. He also weighed in on puppy mills, animal fighting, horse slaughter, the wildlife parts trade, inhumane confinement of pigs on factory farms, and a wide range of other issues, and said he would support us. So for me, that was a clear issue. Again, nothing to do with partisanship. It had to do with how they're standing on animal issues and whether they're making issues a priority and whether they're communicating. If you're silent on animal issues, if you don't talk about them, how are we to evaluate a candidate who has not served in public office previously? So some Republicans who like Oz and who dislike Fetterman, wrote in and said, hey, you're being partisan. I wrote back and I said, not being partisan. I'm looking at this through a single lens, which is animal welfare. And on the basis of the information that we've gathered at this time, this is our recommendation. Fetterman is the better choice for animals. Now, if Oz tomorrow says, listen, I just didn't say anything, but now I'm going to tell you what my views are, and I think those experiments, were probably not the best use of my time. It wasn't worth hurting the animals. And that I have a whole new attitude. And I have a good attitude on, I want to stop horse slaughter, and I'm in a big puppy mill state and I want to address that. Then that changes the equation. But in the absence of that information, it was a very clear ball. I think of myself as an umpire calling balls and strikes. John Roberts, the Supreme Court Justice, when he was elected, he said, the job of a justice is to call balls and strikes on the law. And I think it's my job as head of Animal Wellness Action to call balls and strikes on these races. And I've got a close view of the situation. I subordinate my political views on these issues and just look at how animals are affected. And that's not to say that the other issues aren't important, and they're not important to you as a citizen, as a voter. That's your job to figure out how you're going to look at the other issues relative to animals. But if no one is being single-minded about animals, lawmakers are not going to advance our issues in the ways that we have seen and that we've achieved through the single-minded focus through the years.
Right. And if Dr. Oz would like to come on the Facebook Live and talk about how his views have changed, or send us a statement, we would love to publish that. That would be great for us to be able to share with our audience the evolution to the extent to which it's occurred on his animal views. So thanks for bringing that up.
I don't write anybody, Joseph, I would say I don't write anybody off, right? I mean, we're all sinners when it comes to animals, right? We've all done things, because animals are all around us. There are moral problems all around us. There are moral opportunities around us as well. And few of us come out of the womb, eating in a way that's conscious and recreating fully consciously and driving consciously. I mean, animal advocacy and awareness about animals asks a lot of people. And we're all in a progression one way or another. And I treat lawmakers that same way. So my view is that Dr. Oz is not evil. I just don't know enough. I'm concerned about that career that he had with animal testing. And I want to hear that he's moved on, because I don't want in a Senate where you need to get everybody on board like we just did with Senator Paul and Senator Booker, getting all 100 senators on board of the FDA Modernization Act. I don't want one senator to be a huge apologist for animal testing and to stymie progress on these issues. So that's what's motivating me.
All right, very good. Wayne, thank you a lot. And thank you folks who are watching this and who will watch it. Animalwellnessaction.org is the website. We have a page if you're interested in learning more about modernization of the FDA called Modernized Testing. It's there. You can get our information. There's a phone number there. I'll read it to you now, 202-224-3121. Call it and ask for your House member's office, and tell your House member to support FDA Modernization Act 2.0. Be sure to subscribe to our emails, and again, we rely heavily on your financial contribution to keep up all this good work. So any consideration you could give us there, certainly we'd appreciate too. Thanks for watching the Facebook Live. I'm Joseph Grove, Communications Director for Animal Wellness Action. Wayne Pacelle is our president. And again, Wayne, I know you're super busy this time of year. Thanks for hopping on the show.
Thank you.